Hi there, and welcome to the ATS podcast with me, Will Brown, and John Soulsby, where we break down chunks of health and fitness information into bite-sized pieces, remove a bunch of the noise, and just leave what's relevant. Today we are on episode number 16. The topic for today is our top three books for health and fitness, or training and fitness, whatever you want to call it. Health and fitness seems pretty good. Um, and as usual, we're going to lead in with our off topic, just to warm things up. And our off topic for today is our top three books of all time. It could be fiction or non-fiction. Mix of both if you wish.
Yep.
So you want to lead us off?
Yeah. So top three books all time. I don't really read much like non-fiction outside of work, so I leave that. Um, so fiction, Stormfront number one. Well, so I'm going for like kind of books that are starting a series
Mm-hmm.
because like the most recent book. So Stormfront's by Jim Butcher in the Dresden Files series. For people that haven't read it, go read it. Um, Battlegrounds is my favorite book of the series,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's kind of one of those that none of it ever starts without Stormfront being as good as it is and hooking me into what is now a like 16 book series.
Yeah,
If that
it
makes
is.
sense.
It's a really good series.
And like Battlegrounds is only the best book because of everything else that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just read Battlegrounds, you wouldn't get half of probably the book. Sorry, if you didn't read the books previous, you wouldn't get half of
Yeah, yeah.
it. So yeah, that's probably one
That's
of my
one.
favorite books all time.
Two more.
Um, Steel World by B.V. Larson
Yeah.
from your boy in the Undying Mercenary series. I feel the first like 5 or 6 books of that are really good, and then I still love it, but it goes off a deep end, and
Yeah.
it gets a bit wild. But Steel World, just like kind of as we were talking a lot 2 episodes ago of like what you can do to just like turn your mind off. That
Oh.
series of books is great to just sit there and just like lose yourself in shenanigans.
Oh yeah. It is popcorn, like at its
Yeah.
finest.
And then third. Hmm. Right. This might be semi-surprising, but the first Harry Potter book,
It's reasonable.
like, uh, well, what's annoying is I hate it for so many reasons. In the fact that like the series is written so shitly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many points where you're like, but you literally contradict this a book ago or in
The
2 books.
continuity in Harry Potter is not
Like,
is not very good. Yeah.
it drives me wild now as an adult, like listening to it or watching it, just being like, but like even the continuity in the films, like Alice and I were watching Prisoner of Azkaban last night.
Oh yeah, the old
And
good old time travel that just conveniently shows up for one book.
oh, I know. But they break them all later on. But it's not even that. So in the film, you know when spoiler alert for the third Harry Potter book.
The
But you know in the film where they're at the end and they're all getting attacked by Dementors and Harry thinks his dad sets off the Patronus that saves them all.
yeah.
Right. So in the film, the first time that he sees that, he sees the stag runs around, and then all the Dementors get like thrown away by the Patronus.
Hmm.
Then when they come back 30 minutes later in the film, and actual Harry sets off the Patronus, no stag, just a big white light that scares them all away. I'm like, how did you? This is the same film. Like, how did you not put that in?
Wild. I hadn't noticed that before. That's funny.
I noticed it last night, and it honestly, but the series is well, I mean, it's probably the most popular book series of all time, maybe
Yep.
behind Lord of the Rings. I don't know, but like, and it is phenomenal, and especially reading it, like, well, I don't know about you, but I literally was reading the first few as they were coming out as a kid.
Yeah.
Like,
Same.
it was pretty mad. Um, but yeah, and I think like the fact that there's something about it that is still amazing, yet the fact that every time I listen to it or watch it, I get annoyed about the consistency or lack of. Yet I still enjoy listening to it and watching it all the time.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
top three.
my three. all-time books. Um, it's hard to narrow down. I'm going for
It is.
ones that are not in a series.
Okay, so like standalones.
Um, I just am checking, but I'm pretty sure they are not a series. Um,
Well, some don't count. Like June doesn't count as a series because the ones after it are useless.
no, June is not there though. As much as it is a very
No,
good, as much as it's very good, and I quote it
yeah,
often.
for me, for June, the pacing's not high enough. Like,
Yeah,
so in books, I like a book that is very high paced, like things are going on all the time. June
yeah,
is not like that. It's
yeah.
quite boring.
It's pretty slow going, but then it was written
Yeah.
in like
Oh, I
1964,
completely agree. But it's also
which
why Lord of
is
the Rings is nowhere near my top three because it is so
is very boring.
slow.
Nobody wants to hear it, but it is true. It is very boring to read. Um, my top three are Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Hmm.
Um, The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. That book was
Yeah.
a large eye opener and non-fiction. Um, Children of Time is standalone science fiction regarding uh, what's the plot? A starship, like a spaceship full of folk, are headed towards um, something they've set up, like a place they've set up as like a backup planet, essentially.
Mm.
Like it was set up ages ago to be like a plan B should things go Pete Tong. So they
Yeah.
like put things in motion to like essentially evolve human culture on another planet so that if they ever had to bail from their current planet, they would just go there in cryostasis and arrive at like another planet at a certain period of time. That's all
Ah,
I'm gonna say because you have
yeah.
to read the book
That's
for
cool.
to figure out like whatever else goes on. It's very cool. It's also very like it was very original. I really liked it. It was something I'd never even kind of considered before.
Yeah.
Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin is essentially just a kind of semi autobio slash self help thing of this guy Josh Waitzkin who was a chess prodigy in America who was billed as like the next what was his name? Bill Fisher? No. Essentially like he was essentially billed as the next big chess prodigy. But he very much fell out with it. And ended up also taking up Tai Chi Chuan, which is like a martial arts kind of thing, and it's
Right.
just about his kind of journey of what I've later learned is like a reasonably common thing for gifted kids in that like if you just absolutely blast through school and like early education or just early talent in anything,
Hmm.
you don't really develop a skill set because everything's easy. Like
Right.
you,
Yeah.
you just cruise through all of it. You don't have to learn how to learn, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like you don't need to work out how you learn or what learning is like or like how to overcome any kind of difficulty because everything's just easy.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of about him and his struggles with where he eventually hits the wall. Because like if you get to late teens, early adulthood, having never had to really try,
Yeah.
when you do eventually get met by something, it hits you like a ton of bricks. Like you
Right. Yeah.
are like you're just like you get to a point and you're like I don't know how to get better. Like I just don't understand. Like I don't know what I have to do. And you have nothing to fall back on because you've never had to. And that kind of idea of how to develop that process of like how to understand and find ways and different approaches for learning and like bettering whatever you're trying to get better at is it was really eye opening. It was very helpful.
Yeah. Nice.
And my third
Third.
one would be oh I had it. What was it? Oh, Ready Player One.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Ready
that's
Player
so
One
good.
by Ernest Cline.
That's a really good book.
The film is garbage. Don't watch it. Like it's okay, but it's hot nonsense compared to the book. Like if you are
Yeah,
anyone who's
I
moderately interested in like nerd culture, video game culture, board game, like anything like that from like the
yeah,
late 80s, early 90s, read Ready Player One. It's
yeah.
great.
I think that was maybe the difficulty is like to make the film Ready Player One when they did actually appeal to anyone younger than like 30.
I just don't know why they bothered. Like, just
Plus.
don't.
Oh, I know. But like, I think that's where they went, and you're like, yeah, but
Yeah,
you know,
they changed a bunch of it. The book is way better.
so
I
good.
know everyone fucking says that, but like,
Well, not true. The Lord of the Rings film's far better than the books. Fucking at me.
I'd probably agree. I mean, I'm
The
literally going on
extended
like,
the extended versions of the films are shorter than the first book. All three combined,
yeah,
and probably significantly shorter. It's shenanigans.
I didn't even know that. That is wild.
I don't know. That's an absolute like left field call, and I have no idea. But
Um,
honestly, the books are far too long.
that's a hot take. Um, I didn't even touch on getting into like, imagine getting into the Silmarillion and everything else. Ugh,
Oh,
too much.
yeah,
The right. So going into
yeah.
top
Here
three.
we are.
Yeah,
Sorry,
here we are finally at the topic.
no,
Um,
no, no. This is not the topic yet. Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, 20 hours long an audiobook.
Jesus.
The extended cuts back to back are only 12.
Yeah, that is kind of wild. I had the
Like,
same
nah.
issue. I had the same issue with Game of Thrones. Like, there's a lot of not doing anything. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like if you read fantasy fiction, or science fiction, I suppose. I don't know. I haven't seen it happen as much in science fiction. Um, but then again, I don't read a whole bunch. I mostly prefer fantasy. But where they have this horrendous fantasy trope, like the Wheel of Time is a great example. Everyone thinks that series is great. It's not. Like, it is literally like whenever the book count gets above double digits and the books are also like hundreds upon hundreds of pages long, like please stop.
yeah,
Like if your pitch is oh, but once you get to book 5 it kicks off, then it's not good. Like it's really
yeah. It's especially when book 5 is like 60 hours in
yeah, it's like no it's not.
plus.
Yeah, like the for people who know us, like we go on about the Dresden Files. Dresden Files does get better as it goes on, but it also starts pretty good, and they're also really short.
Huh, like, yeah, like Stormfront's like 9 hours long an audiobook, which isn't that long for an audiobook.
No, that's almost
And
not
like,
even worth a credit.
yeah, the pacing is rapid.
Yeah, like stuff is constantly going on. There's no like
Yeah,
fucking 10-page description of like a feast in a hall like in Game of Thrones. You can tell George R. R.
yeah,
Martin loves food by the way he fucking like
yeah.
writes page upon page upon page of it.
Well,
Like
no
does
wonder he's
more
gonna die before he finishes the series.
I don't know. Does the series have does the book do the books have way more interesting stuff going on and does it make the show look like hot nonsense? Yes. However, it especially if you've already seen the show, it will take you ages to get into stuff that's interesting because you've seen all the big main story beats like Ned Stark series 1,
Yeah.
um
Well, like
Red Wedding.
they literally made like the entire series, and he brought like one book out.
Yeah. Like he's not actually no, I don't think he even brought a book out. Like Dance of Dragons
Right.
I think was already out.
Right. So Game of Thrones TV series literally started, filmed, ended, everything.
And he
The
hasn't
entire
released a
trope,
book.
and now it's old news, and he's not even releasing it.
Yeah, it's literally been erased from everyone's collaborative memory because the last
Yeah.
season was so bad. Anyway, top 3 books for health and fitness before this podcast gets like another half an hour one. Um, my top 3 books because I have them ready are number 1, Integrated Periodization for Sports by James Hoffman, Tudor Bompa, and a nutritionist who I cannot remember.
Ooh.
I think
Um,
that it's super important. It's the book I recommend to literally anyone who will listen because it was very eye-opening in the idea that you can essentially integrate. Actually, it's called Integrated Periodization in Sports Training and Athletic Development because that's a nice, concise title.
Yeah.
Um, by Tudor Bompa, Boris Blumenstein, and James Hoffman. Also Scott Howell and Iris Orbach. It's essentially the idea that you can integrate and periodize sports psychology alongside training and nutrition in a kind of holy triumvirate of training optimization. And there are certain phases and techniques of each that pair together nicely. Like it's essentially like the periodization equivalent of like a seven course tasting menu with a wine pairing.
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting and will kind of I hopefully likely like shake up how you think about stuff, especially if you're someone who's either has all three of these kind of like aspects to your coaching game or not. It's still very interesting to do. Do you want to go for
Mhm.
one? We'll alternate.
Yeah, I mean, mine's also by Bompa as well, but just his straight periodization by it's like the theory of and methodology of training is by Bompa and who's the other guy? I can't remember who the other guy is. But yeah, like that's like almost one of my first training books I ever read, and still every now and again, like we'll go back through it. Like it's just a very good, simple start into the world of training, I feel.
This is the one with Busicelli.
Yeah.
Carlo
Yeah,
Busicelli.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it's a big red book. It's very heavy reading. Be
Hmm.
prepared for a lot of numbers.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, no surprises. I read it when I was also doing sports and exercise science. But
Mm.
yes, um, yeah. So that's probably one of the better ones for me, or
Uh,
a good starting one.
the next one for me is let me just pull it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and remember because the rest of mine are all of mine are at work.
The scientific principles of strength training by Renaissance Periodization. That's
Yeah,
Mike Israel, James Hoffman, Melissa Davis, Nick Shaw, that lot. Um, again, really great company, really great people. I've been to some of their seminars and stuff before. They're really nice. Again, the book is useful because it brought a lot of the it opened up and communicated a lot of the ideas of modern periodization that were kind of proliferated by folk like Mike Stone uh, and people like that into yeah it kind of took all the stuff that they'd been finding out again and organized it and presented it in a way that was kind of bridging between like you don't need a degree to kind of understand all of it, but also it's like elevating just regular or definitely elevated my regular kind of just basic periodization and training knowledge. Like giving you like a
yeah,
kind of like an ascending pyramid of importance or a descending list of important variables of like these are the things. It kind of like it almost gives you like a oh, what's the word? Like a rigor to like put things against of like you
yeah,
can kind of vet your training against things or if you just it helps you make training decisions because that's realistically like if you're at the point where you kind of understand what you need to do to get somebody to a certain point, the variability is them and their life and you end up having to make choices and it's like how do you decide which is the correct choice at any given moment, and like one way is just through experience because you just figure it out over time by
mhm,
making the wrong choice and then realizing it's the wrong choice and why, and then the next time attempting to make the right choice, but then if it's not the same or not quite the same situation, whatever.
Yeah, I think what they do really well, like as in the first ones we said, are both written by, well, Bumpa's literally a professor,
Yeah.
and it's very obviously written by a professor to essentially students in uh like biology space, as in it's very wordy. There's lots of like graphs and data flying around everywhere. It's very kind of like lean on like user interface for people who aren't already aware with the field.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel if you have a like what they've done really well in the um Juggernaut one is taken all
It's
that,
RP, it's not
or
Jug.
is that RP?
Yeah.
I know, but like what they've done well in that one is essentially take all the information and distill it to essential normal, like not normal, but like normal gym goers, PTs, like people who aren't university trained already.
Yeah, and given that, like, I think one of the criteria, or certainly like the criteria you need to work at that company, Renaissance Periodization, is you have to at least have or be pursuing your doctorate, and
Yeah,
also be an international level competitor in whatever sport you're competing in,
yeah,
which is kind of wild.
it is kind of wild.
Like you can't work there. Like it doesn't matter what your experience or what your anything is if you don't fit those two categories. So it's like yeah, you have
Yeah,
to kind of know your shit to even work there.
yeah, I totally agree.
You got a second one?
Second one is a bit different, but building a story brand by Donald Miller.
Hmm.
It's much more on the marketing side than pure training. So whether that works with everyone listening, but um, part I think of the health and fitness business that's getting bigger and bigger is actually being able to get your message across.
Hmm.
Um, and if you can't do that, you're not going to get very far. Um, but it's essentially about changing your narrative so that you can communicate it to people better, uh, and how it impacts them.
Nice. My third one, I'm swithering between ones I've like older ones or newer ones. Uh, I'll go with the newer one since the older one was technically two books combined.
Yeah,
Um, the two books combined one is The Art and Science of Lifting by Greg Nuckols. You should definitely get those. The new one that I am going to pick though is the second edition of Advanced Strength and Conditioning by Anthony Turner and Paul Comfort. Uh, just cause it's just really good. Like the the kind of level and rigor with which and like the research that's getting done in terms of figuring out like optimal and best practice across the board. And again, it's strength and conditioning, so it covers every aspect of each different type of fitness that you could want, like strength, power, speed, impulse, like aerobic,
yeah,
anaerobic, like whatever you want, agility, like all these things. It covers all of it. It is super wordy and absolutely jam packed with all the references and stuff because it is literally a textbook. Um, but it's really good. Like the information, like that kind of compounding effect of like things getting better and more like condensed over time is just doing really good for the coaching space, I think.
yeah. Um, I'm really trying to see if I could find my. So it's either one that I read ages ago that I actually do still kind of, or my brain still uses every time I'm thinking about training programs, whether I actually like that puts anything into it or not. Um, I'll see if I can find it online.
What were you looking for again?
It's essentially it's like so boring, but it's literally a biochemistry textbook that I listened that I had in university. Pretty sure it's actually Alice's technically,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I think this is literally just called biochemistry. It's not. but just understanding like how energy systems work
Yeah.
in depth for me really like helped um me then appreciate when I'm writing programs like what I'm actually like wanting to do.
Mm.
That probably says more about how my brain typically works and why I went to university than most. But if that's something that you are interested in knowing about and why you're doing certain aspects of training, I felt it was really useful. And I
Yeah.
still even and actually understanding the energy systems you use when you're training and which ones you're kind of getting on, like whether it's like the phosphocreatine chain or even just Krebs cycle, that sort of stuff. I think it's just really helpful. And like why things build up and why they don't if you're
Mm.
looking to do it. Like, yeah.
Nice.
But that one's real like sciencey and wordy. There's no niceties about it. It's just like here's a bunch of chemical reactions, figure it
Yeah. Classic. Like throwback to our last episode, we were talking about further education. Like something that summed it up, should have probably summed up in that episode, is like attempt to get your training information from people who are in tweed jackets.
Yes.
Like that will change the game significantly. If you're like watching someone with leather elbow pads, some Kiwi with leather elbow pads in a tweed jacket on like the UK Strength and Conditioning
Yeah.
Association's YouTube, you're like, that stuff hits a bit differently. Like that's probably you're
Yeah.
probably gonna have to stop and like Google about 10 different things within the first two
Oh
minutes
yeah.
because you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
However, it will
And
deepen understanding tremendously.
yeah, and they'll talk about it like it's literally the most basic thing that they've ever discussed, and you're like, wait, we have to go back a step.
Yeah, it is very
It
good
was
to
good.
have challenging books. Cool. And that is our top three books, both off topic and topic. All right, we out.
Goodbye.